Good evening, dear listener. Tonight the world slows its breath and shadows lengthen across the walls. The wind outside may stir the trees, but here, in the hush of this room, you are safe. You are warm. You are gently sinking into the soft folds of night, where stories wait like old friends in the dark. In your hands, or perhaps only in your mind, is a book. But not just any book. This is a book of horrors, an anthology lovingly gathered by the editor Stephen Jones, released into the world in the misted month of September, back in the year 2011. A quiet collection, stitched from shadows and subtle fears, written by those who know how to whisper darkness into your ears without ever raising their voice. This is not the kind of horror that screams. No. These stories do not leap, do not lash out. Instead, they creep, they linger, they breathe slowly in the corners of your thoughts. This is horror the way twilight settles over a hillside, the way fog rolls in across an empty field, quiet, weightless, and oddly comforting. It is the kind of fear that feels almost familiar, like something you've dreamt before, or almost remembered. Stephen Jones, a name deeply rooted in the world of horror, has long been a caretaker of the genre's darker gardens. With a book of horrors, he wanted something different, something that harkened back to the old days of fright, before vampires sparkled, before monsters were made charming. He wanted to bring back the stories that haunt rather than dazzle, that disturb rather than flatter. And so, he called upon the quiet masters of the eerie, and they answered. There's Stephen King, of course, the name that needs no introduction, who opens the book with a tale of agony and faith as only he can. King does not shout his horrors. He lets them seep in like cold through a cracked window pane. Caitlín R. Kiernan arrives with her signature misty prose, where memory is unreliable and reality warps like light through water. Her stories don't scare you directly. They invite you to get lost and find something else waiting on the other side. Laird Barron, too, steps forward, bringing with him the shadows of pulp noir and cosmic dread, writing as if Raymond Chandler had peered too long into the abyss. His tale is gritty and unsettling, soaked in the uncanny. Angela Slatter writes of coffins and legacies, of the dark and feminine, with a voice that feels both ancient and familiar, like lullabies whispered over gravestones. Her work doesn't rush. It watches, and these are only the first whispers. Throughout this collection, you will meet others. Reggie Oliver's haunted child, Ramsey Campbell's disquieted radio host, and John Ajvide Lindqvist's grieving father who listens too closely. To his neighbor's strange music, each author comes with their own lantern to guide you. Not out of the dark, but deeper into it. They know the forest well. They know how to hold your hand while letting the leaves rustle just a bit too loudly. They write not to alarm, but to awaken some old part of you that has always known what lurks in silence. But here tonight, there is no need to fear. We are not running through nightmare corridors or trembling beneath blankets. Instead, we are reclining gently, breathing slowly, listening with curiosity to the stories that drift in like low mist. These tales will not chase you. They will keep you company. As you lie there, safe beneath your sheets, perhaps you can imagine yourself by a crackling fire in some quiet house by the sea. Outside, the waves whisper secrets against the rocks. Inside, this book rests open on your chest, or gently in your lap. You turn the page not out of fear, but out of wonder. Each story a hush, a murmur, a hand brushing against yours in the night. Horror, at its heart, is not always about terror. Sometimes it is about remembering that we are small, that the world is ancient, that the darkness is not empty, but full of stories. Strange ones, sad ones, stories that live on the edge of things, at the border between waking and sleep. So tonight, let us wander there. Let us begin with the first tale, but not in haste. We will walk gently, step by step, through each story. There is no need to rush. The night is long, and these stories were meant to be told in darkness. You need only to listen. Let go, and let the quiet horror drift in like smoke from a dying candle. Let us begin the first story in a book of horrors, a tale penned by Stephen King, whose name has long been etched into the darkened corners of our imaginations. This is The Little Green God of Agony. There is a house, large and private, tucked away from the outside world. The sort of house that's expensive not because it's beautiful, but because it's hidden. The kind of place meant for rest, or hiding, or maybe both. Inside the house, one room glows faintly with artificial light. Clean, white, cold. A place made for healing, or the illusion of it. And in the center of the room lies Andrew Newsom, a man once powerful, once full of life and drive. A businessman who soared through deals and empires like wind through trees, but now he is broken, crushed, quite literally, by a plane crash. His body survives, but barely. His spine was mangled, his legs useless. He is paralyzed by pain, deep and gnawing, like something buried in him that won't let go. Around him move others, quietly, professionally. One of them is Catherine MacDonald, a private nurse. She is tough, practical, and unafraid to speak her mind. For weeks, she's been caring for Newsom. She doesn't coddle. She doesn't indulge his fears. She believes in science, in medicine, in physical therapy, and tough truths. Pain, in her eyes, is something to be endured and treated, not banished by superstition. But Newsom has grown weary. The pain doesn't fade. It grips him tightly, day after day. So he turns to something else, and that something arrives in the form of Reverend Rideout. He is tall, bony, dressed in a black suit that looks more like it belongs to a mortician than a man of the cloth. His eyes are pale and bright like washed-out glass. He carries nothing but his Bible and a look of patient certainty. He claims to be a healer. Not a miracle worker, he insists, but someone who helps cast out demons. Not the kind with horns or smoke, but smaller things. Personal things. Spirits of affliction, he calls them. And he believes Andrew Newsom is possessed by one. Catherine watches, silent and skeptical, as the ritual begins. Reverend Rideout lays out the room in quiet ceremony. He speaks softly, his voice gentle yet firm, calling on the power of faith, of light, of divine authority. He kneels by the bedside. He places his hands carefully on Newsom's chest, and then something changes. Newsom begins to tremble. His mouth moves with silent words. His skin grows pale. There is a heaviness in the air, a thick pressure that Catherine feels but can't explain. It is as though something unseen has stirred in the room, a presence neither welcome nor hostile. Just there. Rideout does not flinch. He speaks louder but still gently. He calls it forth, names it, demands it leave. Newsom's body convulses once, and then, slowly, he opens his mouth. What happens next is difficult to explain. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. There are no screams, no flashes of light. Instead, from the corner of Catherine's eye, she sees something move, small, green, and wet-looking. It scuttles from the folds of Newsom's hospital gown like a frog, or a lizard, or something else entirely. It is no bigger than a child's hand. Its skin glistens like old mold, its eyes pinprick black. It looks up, and then it scurries across the floor toward a shadow and vanishes, just like that. Newsom gasps and smiles. His pain, he says, is gone. Catherine says nothing. She is pale now, her hands trembling slightly. She wants to believe it was a hallucination, a trick of light, a momentary failure of sleep or science. But part of her knows what she saw. Part of her knows that something left him, something green, something wrong, something real. Reverend Rideout simply nods, calm and composed, and closes his Bible. The ritual is done. The affliction has passed. But not all pain, Catherine realizes, is physical. Some pain comes from knowing that the world isn't quite as rational as we wish it to be. That something small and hungry can live inside a man, and that we might not be alone in our own suffering. And some knowledge lingers long after the body heals. As the house grows quiet again and the light dims into evening, Catherine stands at the window, staring into the night. She wonders how many more little green gods are out there, and whether someday one might come looking for her. Now we enter a different kind of world, one shaped by myth, memory, and the deep, whispering shadows of the woods. This is Charcloth, Firesteel, and Flint by Caitlín R. Kiernan. There is a woman, her name unimportant perhaps, but she is all too familiar with the taste of the earth, with the smell of the woods, with the coolness of stone beneath her fingers. She has walked this path many times before, though it feels different now. The air is thick with something. Perhaps it is only the growing sense of something remembered. Her name is Clara, and she has come back to the place where it all began. The woods. The place where her heart first learned the language of grief. The place where her life, so simple, so pure in its early days, was forever altered. Clara and her companion, another woman whose name is just as elusive as the wind, walk together through the ancient trees. It is a journey neither of them is quite ready for, but one they must take. In the years between, they have both lived their separate lives, yet something has pulled them back to this place, something that refuses to let them forget. The woods are dense, thick with an ancient stillness that only nature can bring. There are whispers here, not words, but the rustling of leaves and the groaning of branches, like the breath of the trees themselves. Clara cannot shake the feeling that the woods are watching her, waiting for her to remember. It is not fear that tightens her chest, but something deeper, an unwelcome sense of inevitability. The last time she was here, she had been young, full of dreams, and unaware of the shadows that flickered at the edges of her world. Back then, she had walked these same paths with someone she loved, someone who shared her sense of adventure. But something happened that day, something they both knew but could not name, and now she has returned. She has come to face it, or to fail in doing so. They walk deeper past the familiar landmarks, the stone walls, the old cairns, the markers that speak in languages long forgotten by men. But the stones are not what Clara remembers most clearly. It is the fire, the heat, the crackling of something burning. They reach the clearing, where an ancient fire pit waits, quiet and unused, in the heart of the forest. Here, Clara and her companion sit, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a small, carefully tended fire. It is the same fire she remembers from before, the one that never seemed to burn away enough, always smoldering just enough to leave a trace. Her companion speaks now, softly, almost reverently, and tells Clara that there is something she must do. She must create fire. Not with a match, not with a lighter, but with the tools of the old ways, Charcloth, Firesteel, and Flint. It is a ritual, something ancient and meaningful, something that will connect her once again to this place, to this memory, to the truth she has long buried. Clara does not hesitate. Her fingers, though worn with years, know exactly what to do. The motions are slow but deliberate, guided by muscle, memory that stretches back into forgotten times. She takes the Charcloth, placing it carefully on the rock. She strikes the Firesteel against the flint, the sparks flying, catching the cloth. A small, fragile ember forms, glowing in the dark, like a distant star. The fire begins to spread, slowly but surely, until it curls and dances in the center of the clearing. Clara watches it, entranced, as though she has seen this happen before, many times in another life. And then, as the fire settles, the sound of the forest shifts. The breeze, once soft, now carries with it a strange hum. A voice, a murmur, a whispering of the earth itself. Clara turns to look, but there is nothing there. Only the fire, growing higher now, licking at the air, casting long shadows across the stone. But in the flickering light, she sees it. Just a glimpse. A shadow that does not belong. A shape, moving too swiftly, too deliberately, just beyond. The edge of the flames. It is a fleeting thing, gone almost as soon as she notices it. Yet the sensation lingers. The feeling that something old and untamed has awoken once again. The fire continues to burn, but Clara knows now that she has done what she came here to do. The ritual is complete. She has faced the past, or at least the part of it she could remember. And yet, in the pit of her stomach, something unsettles her. It is as if the woods are not finished with her, as if they never truly let her go. As the night deepens and the fire cracks and hisses, Clara and her companion sit in silence. The clearing is still, save for the whispers of the trees and the distant calls of creatures that inhabit the dark spaces of the world. And in that silence, Clara begins to understand. Some things are never meant to be forgotten. Some things, dark things, things tied to the earth, never really leave. Now we enter darker territory still, though gently, always gently, into a tale steeped in noir shadows and slow, creeping dread. Laird Barron's Hand of Glory. It begins in the 1920s, in a time when the world was still learning how to forget one war and unknowingly making room for another. A time of speakeasies and jazz clubs, of long shadows cast by men in hats with secrets under their coats. In the soft hush of night, we meet Johnny Cope, a name like a whisper, a man shaped by loss and sharpened by survival. He's young, but already bears the weariness of someone who's seen too much. His brother Frankie was gunned down years ago, murdered in the kind of quiet, unspectacular way the underworld excels at. Johnny didn't weep. He didn't scream. He waited, and now the time has come. You see, Johnny has been apprenticed under a man named Tombaugh, a hitman and something more. Not merely a killer, but a disciple of the old and terrible arts, a practitioner of darker paths. Johnny's education has not only been in bullets and blood, but in ritual, in signs, in things that live beneath the surface of reality like worms beneath wet leaves. Tombaugh is a man who believes in the Hand of Glory. It is not a metaphor. It is a relic, a literal hand, taken from a hanged man, cured in strange ways, soaked in lore and shadow. When lit with candle wicks pressed into the dead fingers, the Hand of Glory was said to render all in its light helpless, silent, frozen. A myth, perhaps, But Johnny has seen things that suggest otherwise. He has listened closely to Tomba's mutterings. He has obeyed strange tasks. He has waited, and now he is ready. The story follows him as he moves through the underworld, tracing the path to his brother's killer, a man named Sharky, a cruel figure, armored in charm and cruelty. A man whose sins run deeper than murder. Johnny isn't driven only by revenge anymore. Something else burns in him now. A hunger for knowledge. A desire to touch the deep threads that run beneath this world. He slips through rooms full of cigar smoke and red velvet chairs. He walks past eyes that see too much and mouths that say too little. He listens, watches, waits, and in his pocket he carries something small and wrapped in linen. Something cold. Something that no longer bleeds. Eventually, the night leads him to a remote mansion, a house buried beneath forest and silence. It's here that Johnny makes his move. The ritual is simple but grim. He sets the hand of glory aflame, the tiny wicks, hissing as they catch light. The air bends. The house grows still. Time slows. All within are frozen, not dead, just held, as if the air itself has forgotten how to move. He finds Sharky in an upstairs room, alone. Johnny doesn't gloat, doesn't raise his voice. He simply looks at the man who stole his brother's life, and with quiet finality, ends his. But that is not the end, because Johnny has crossed a line, not just moral, but metaphysical. In using the hand of glory, he has opened a door, and behind that door, something watches, something that isn't pleased, or angry, or anything we could name. Afterward, Johnny doesn't sleep. He doesn't run. He simply feels it, a presence just beyond the edge of the visible world, like static on a radio that's not quite tuned. He walks the streets again. The same streets, yet subtly changed. Lights seem dimmer, faces seem hollow, and when he looks into a mirror, he sometimes sees a second face, just behind his own. That's sign. Price of revenge was not paid in blood. It was paid in silence, in knowing, in becoming something else. And now, Johnny waits again. But this time, it is not for vengeance. It is for the moment that the darkness he once summoned will return to collect the rest of him. Let us walk slowly now into the next tale. One shaped by mourning, by ritual, and by quiet defiance in the face of old traditions. Angela Slatter's The Coffin-Maker's Daughter. There is a house in the heart of the city, built of old, stones and darker secrets. Its windows are shuttered most days. Its door opens only when someone has died. Within it lives Hepzibah Ballantyne. She is the Coffin-Maker's daughter, but also the Coffin-Maker herself now. The title passed quietly into her hands when her father died. No one questioned it. They knew better. Hepzibah is tall and spare, with eyes like storm clouds and a face carved by stillness. She wears mourning not just as fabric, but as a second skin. Her workshop smells of cedar and candle wax. Her tools are precise, her wood smooth and obedient. Her coffins are flawless, beautiful things really, works of art for the dead. She never raises her voice. She doesn't need to. People come to her when their loved ones pass. They speak in low tones. They hand over the names and details, and she nods. They rarely stay long. Some whisper that her work goes beyond nails and wood, that the dead rest more deeply in her coffins, that her hands have the old knowledge, the kind you don't learn from books. But no one says these things aloud, not in daylight. Hepzibah knows death intimately, not just the mechanics of it, the measurements, the rites. but the rhythm of it. She knows which families will come knocking before they even realize their loss. She feels death like a change, in the air, like thunder turning over beneath the clouds. There is power in her bloodline, a quiet inheritance, a talent passed through silence. But not all deaths are clean. Not all ghosts are willing. Hepzibah sometimes receives those who cannot rest. They come in the night, half-felt, brushing the corners of her dreams. Sometimes they ask questions. Sometimes they scream. She listens either way. She has ways of answering them. One day a man named Mr. Blake arrives. Well-dressed, impatient. He brings news of his wife's death. An accident, he claims. A quiet end to a brief marriage. But something about him prickles. Hepzibah's skin. His words are too polished. His grief too measured. She prepares the body anyway. She is nothing if not professional. But as she lays the woman out, readying the linen and smoothing the pale skin, she sees it. A bruise. Faint, but telling. Not from a fall. Not from accident. Hepzibah does not speak of it. She finishes the coffin with quiet care, oils the wood, weaves a protective charm beneath the silk lining, and then, just before the lid is nailed shut, she whispers something. Not a farewell, not exactly, but a key. A door left ajar. The funeral comes and goes. The mourners wear black and speak of how sudden it all was. Mr. Blake stands stiffly, dutifully, like a man performing a part he has rehearsed. But Hepzibah watches his eyes. Watches how they never rest on the coffin too long. She knows he's afraid, and she knows why. That night, the air in her house changes. A wind, but from inside. A pressure, like something pushing through. She lights her lamp, waits. And then she hears it. A knock. Not on her door, on her workroom table, where the empty coffin now sits. She smiles, just a little, calmly, as if this were always going to happen. You see, her coffins are not just for keeping bodies still, they are also for waking truths. In the days that follow, Mr. Blake is seen less and less. Some say he fled the city, others say he went mad. Hepzibah does not say anything at all. She returns to her work. The wood, the polish, the quiet hammering of nails. And when people ask for her services, they find her as they always do. Calm, precise, and listening. But every so often, a ghost passes through her parlor. A whisper behind her shoulder. A name. She remembers. And she makes room, because death is not the end. Not always. Not in the house of the Coffin-Maker's daughter. It's take another quiet step into the strange, the shadowed, and the softly unsettling. Roots and All by Brian Hodge. In this story, we meet Liz, a woman of quiet strength and private questions. She is a travel writer, wandering through towns and countries, writing calm reflections about places people dream of visiting. But this time, her journey is different. This time, it's personal. Her brother has vanished, disappeared from a cabin in the woods where he was supposed to be spending a weekend retreat. No note, no signs of struggle, just gone. And so Liz finds herself driving through lonely roads, fields lined with rustling trees, their branches heavy with secrets. The air carries a stillness, not peaceful, but waiting. She arrives at the cabin where her brother was last seen. It's small and rough around the edges, the kind of place that should feel cozy but doesn't. Dust hangs in the air like something unsaid. She explores gently, noting little things that don't quite fit. A kettle left out, books stacked strangely, a journal half buried in the cushions of a faded chair. The journal is her brother's. Its entries begin normally, descriptions of the drive up, the view, the solitude, but slowly they begin to twist. He writes about a local legend, a creature or a spirit that lives beneath the earth among the roots, something older than names. He writes of dreams that don't feel like dreams, of whispers under the floorboards, of waking up with dirt under his nails. Liz doesn't want to believe it, but outside, the trees seem to lean closer. She decides to stay the night. The cabin settles around her like a heavy blanket. The walls creak softly, like old wood remembering something it can't quite say. The wind outside hums low, as though reciting a lullaby in a language no one speaks anymore. She dreams, but it doesn't feel like dreaming. She sees roots, thick and wet, coiling around bones. She sees her brother's face beneath the soil, eyes closed, peaceful, but aware. She wakes with dirt beneath her fingernails. In the morning, Liz seeks out the local townspeople. They are polite, but quiet. Too quiet. As if they all share a story they've agreed never to speak aloud. One woman, old and bent like a willow tree, says just a few words. It calls. Always has. Sometimes it chooses. Sometimes it keeps. Liz tries to reason with it. She doesn't believe in ghosts or monsters, but this doesn't feel like a monster. It feels like the forest. Itself, like a will, slow and patient and unknowable. She returns to the cabin. She doesn't run. Instead, she listens. That night, she goes into the woods. The trees do not rustle. They part for her. She walks until the moon is gone behind leaves, until the stars are only stories. And then she finds it, a hollow in the earth, a place where the roots tangle in shapes that almost look like hands. She kneels and speaks to it, not in words, but in thought. A question, a plea, a promise. The story doesn't end in terror or escape. There is no scream, no violence, only a choice. In the days that follow, the cabin is empty again. No one sees Liz, but travelers speak of a new guide in the woods. A woman with calm eyes who knows all the trails, who listens more than she speaks, who sometimes pauses beside old trees, as if hearing something no one else can. She writes still, they say. But her stories are different now. Not about cities or landmarks, but about the quiet things that grow in shadow and the ones who stay behind to listen. Let's dim the lights a little more and lean into the hush that precedes memory. Dennis Etchison's Tell Me I'll See You Again. We begin with a man named Paul. He walks through the city as if he's searching. Not in a frantic way. No, it's slower than that. Like someone walking through a dream, hoping to turn a corner and find something that feels like home. Paul has lost someone. Her name was Marcy. They were in love once. The kind of love that made ordinary things glow a little. Coffee shops and park benches, soft laughter and half-finished sentences. She was light in the quiet corners of his life. And then one day, she was gone. Not dramatically, not violently, just absence. A phone call, a silence, a funeral. He remembers the faces that tried to comfort him. He remembers the cold. But mostly, he remembers her voice, soft as a feather landing. Now, he walks. The city hasn't changed, but it feels unfamiliar. The streets twist in ways they never used to. Buildings seem to lean, and shadows feel longer than they should be. People pass him like ghosts, and yet sometimes out of the corner of his eye, he sees her. A flicker in a doorway, a woman with her walk, her coat, her hair tucked just the way Marcy used to do it on windy days. He chases these shadows, not out, of desperation, but out of longing. A quiet pull in his chest. He begins to hear her voice, not clearly, like a melody remembered from childhood, like a whisper from the far end of a hallway. Tell me you'll find me. Tell me I'll see you again. One night he finds himself outside a building he doesn't remember walking to. It's old, with ivy crawling across its bricks. There's a single light glowing behind a curtain on the 3rd floor. He knows he's supposed to go in. The door opens easily, like it's been waiting. Inside, the walls are lined with mirrors. Not ordinary mirrors, but ones that shimmer slightly like water. As he walks past them, he doesn't see himself. He sees moments. He sees Marcy, laughing in the sun, crying in the dark, reaching for him. He sees himself, too. Always a step behind. The hallway leads to a room with a single chair and a record player. A soft song plays, one they used to dance to, and there she is. Marcy. Not as a ghost, not exactly. She is presence. Memory made tender flesh. She doesn't speak right away. She just looks at him with eyes that still know him. Finally, she says, "I've been trying to stay. I didn't want to go." He wants to hold her but can't. He wants to cry but doesn't. Instead, he listens. She tells him that love is a thread, that it doesn't break, that some echoes are strong enough to find their way back, even through the dark. But the moment is fragile. It's fading. She says, "You have to let me go." He doesn't want to, but he nods. Because love, real love, sometimes means letting go so someone can rest. And she smiles, soft, peaceful, and says, "Tell me I'll see you again." He answers, "You will, in everything that matters." And then she is gone. The mirrors dim. The hallway stretches behind him like sleep. He leaves the building slowly. The night air is cool and still. The city seems quieter, less haunted somehow. The weight in his chest eases. Not because he stopped missing her, but because he knows she heard him. He walks home, not to forget, but to remember differently. Let's step now into a different kind of quiet, one that hums in the walls, beneath the floorboards, behind closed doors. John Ajvide Lindqvist's The Music of Bengt Karlsson, Murderer. It begins with a journey, a father and his son driving. Into the countryside, Leonard is the father, a man frayed at the edges, hollowed out by grief. His wife has died, recently, painfully. He doesn't quite know how to be anymore. Everything familiar feels strange. Everything once warm now carries a chill. Benjamin is the son. Quiet. 9 years old. He doesn't cry often, but his silences say more than words. He watches his father, with eyes far too old for a child. They are both trying, but they are drifting apart like boats unmoored. They're headed to a rented house by a lake, a summer place. A chance, Leonard hopes, to start again, even for a little while. He tells himself they'll swim, fish, maybe even laugh again. The house is small and pale, with an aging dock stretching out into the still water. It seems peaceful enough, though the air holds a kind of hush, like a held breath. They settle in, but at night, strange things begin to happen. Leonard hears music, soft and crackling, like it's coming from an old radio tuned halfway to nowhere. Melodies that drift in and out, always seeming to come from the room next door. But when he checks, there's nothing. No radio. No sound. Benjamin hears it too. He begins asking questions about the house, about the man who used to live here. The caretaker, an old woman with a face like crumpled paper, tells them the house once belonged to Bengt Karlsson, a recluse, a man with no friends. A man who many years ago was convicted of a terrible crime, a murder. Not a dramatic one. Quiet, cold, deliberate. And afterward she says, Bengt came back here, to this house. He lived out the rest of his years in silence and music. Always music. Leonard doesn't want to tell Benjamin too much. The boy has already lost his mother. There's no need for ghosts, but Benjamin is drawn to it. He says the music is speaking to him, that he's learning the song. Leonard listens at night, ears straining in the dark. He begins to hear not just music, but something beneath it. Words, almost. Not in any language he knows. Humming, whispering, breathing. One night he wakes and finds Benjamin standing at the end of the dock, eyes closed, mouth moving soundlessly. The lake is utterly still. Leonard gently calls to him, walks him back inside. The boy doesn't remember getting up. The days stretch on. Leonard feels himself fraying. He begins to dream of water, of drowning in music, of voices calling to him from beneath the lake, and then he begins to see him, a man, on the edge of the woods, watching. His outline seems to shimmer, never quite solid. He doesn't move, but somehow he gets closer each time. It's Bengt, he thinks. Or what remains of him. Not a ghost exactly, a resonance. The music continues. Benjamin now hums it during the day. It makes Leonard's skin crawl, not from fear, but from sorrow. The tune is beautiful but heavy, like mourning wrapped in melody. Eventually, Leonard discovers a locked room in the house, a door tucked behind an old curtain. He finds the key. Inside, it's a study. Dust, records, sheet music. A chair positioned in front of a blank wall. He finds the title of the melody Benjamin has been humming. It's written in pencil, faint and spidery. Tell me you forgive me. Leonard sits in the chair and listens, and for the first time, he understands. Bengt wasn't a monster. He was a man broken by guilt. The music wasn't to haunt, but to apologize, to find peace. Leonard weeps, not just for Bengt, but for himself, for everything he's held back, for the ache of trying to be strong when he feels lost. That night, Benjamin comes to him and simply says, he's gone now. The next morning, the music is gone. The house feels lighter. The lake reflects the sky without ripples, and Leonard, for the first time in weeks, takes Benjamin's hand. They sit on the dock. No words. Just warmth. And slowly, the music that once haunted the walls becomes memory. No longer heavy, but gentle. A lullaby from the past. Let's gently ease into Getting It Wrong by Ramsey Campbell. The story opens with a man named Malcolm. He lives alone in a modest house, filled with small objects collected over the years. Books, photographs, trinkets that tell stories. Only he fully remembers. Malcolm's life is quiet, routine, wrapped in the gentle hum of everyday existence. He works as a journalist, often covering stories about strange happenings in small towns. He enjoys the steady rhythm of his days, the comforting patterns that make the world feel safe. But recently, something has unsettled Malcolm. He's been noticing small oddities, things misplaced, sounds in the night, shadows moving just beyond the edge of his vision. At first, he tells himself it's nothing. The mind playing tricks, tiredness, stress, but the feeling grows. One evening, after a long day of work, Malcolm returns home to find his front door slightly ajar. He freezes. Inside, everything looks normal, but there's a subtle shift, as if The house is holding its breath. He searches each room quietly, senses sharpened. Nothing seems taken, nothing disturbed. Still, the unease lingers. He calls a friend, someone he trusts, to come stay for the night. That night, the house is alive with sounds. Soft creaks, whispered breaths of wind, a faint tapping from somewhere deep in the walls. Malcolm tries to sleep, but his mind races. He wonders if someone is there, or if he's simply losing himself to paranoia. Over the next days, Malcolm becomes increasingly cautious, watching shadows, double-checking locks, questioning his own memories. A neighbor mentions seeing a strange figure lingering near his home. Malcolm feels both relief and fear. He wants to believe it's just coincidence. A passerby. But part of him whispers that something more is at play. He begins to revisit old articles he's written, looking for clues. He finds a story about a local man accused of a crime he may not have committed. The details are fuzzy, but the echoes of misunderstanding hang heavy. Malcolm starts to wonder if he himself has been getting it wrong all along, if what he thought was real is colored by fear and doubt. One evening, as twilight fades, he steps outside and looks toward the empty street. The shadows stretch long and soft. He breathes in deeply and lets the tension ease a little, because sometimes he realizes it's okay to not have all the answers, to accept the mysteries we carry with us, to live in the quiet uncertainty without fear. As the night wraps around him, Malcolm closes his eyes and lets the soft darkness cradle him. He understands that sometimes the most important thing is to keep moving forward, even when things don't quite add up. The story lingers like a slow sigh, a reminder that our minds are delicate, and sometimes the greatest strength is found in gentle acceptance. Let's take a slow, soothing walk through Robert Shearman's Alice Through the Plastic Sheet. The story opens in a small, softly lit hospital room. Alice lies there, still and pale, her fragile body cocooned beneath a thin plastic sheet, transparent but shimmering like a veil. The room smells faintly of antiseptic and flowers, a mixture both clinical and tender. Her husband, Mark, sits quietly by her bedside. He watches the soft rise and fall of her chest, the way her eyelashes flutter with sleep, or perhaps dreams. Mark is caught between worlds, the stark, harsh reality of Alice's condition and the shimmering memories that refuse to let her go. The plastic sheet is like a thin barrier, a translucent membrane separating life from death, presence from absence. Mark's fingers brush the sheet lightly, tracing patterns on the smooth surface as if trying to reach through and touch the part of Alice that still lingers just beyond his grasp. In this quiet space, time stretches. Moments lengthen like shadows at dusk. Mark remembers the Alice he knew, her laughter, her smile, the way she used to dance in their kitchen with the morning light spilling through the curtains. He recalls conversations that now feel distant, like echoes from another life. There was the Alice who loved painting, who dreamed of faraway places and whispered stories to their daughter, Sophie. But now, all of that seems wrapped in the fragile plastic, preserved yet out of reach. Mark's thoughts drift as he sits, a silent sentinel in the quiet room. Outside, the world moves on. Cars hum softly, voices fade in and out. But here, in the stillness, time seems to fold in on itself. He wonders if Alice can hear him, if the plastic sheet is not a barrier, but a window, a shimmering glass through which their souls might still speak. He speaks softly, telling her stories of Sophie's school day, of the garden blooming in spring, of the small moments that make life warm. His voice is low, a gentle murmur, as if the sound might carry through the plastic and reach her. He talks about their dreams, plans for the future that now feel fragile, like bubbles floating on a breeze. The story moves slowly, like a lullaby, weaving between memory and hope. Mark remembers how they met years ago in a rain-soaked city street. Alice had smiled then, bright and fearless, and something in Mark's heart shifted. They built a life together filled with quiet joy and tender moments. And now, here he is, watching, waiting, hoping. One afternoon, as sunlight filters through the hospital window, Mark notices a subtle movement beneath the plastic sheet, a twitch of Alice's finger, a soft flutter of her eyelids. It's a small, delicate sign, a whisper of life. Hope stirs like a faint light in the dark. Mark reaches out, tracing the shape of her hand through the sheet, fingers barely touching. He imagines the plastic melting away, the barrier dissolving so he can hold her again, not just in memory, but in presence. He remembers the last conversation they had before she fell ill, how Alice spoke of dreams, of worlds unseen, of a place where love never fades. Mark clings to that vision. He imagines walking through the plastic sheet, stepping into a dream where Alice waits, a world where the past and present blend softly, where sorrow is gentled by love's enduring light. In this imagined place, they walk together again. The hospital room fades. They are in a garden bathed in golden light. Sophie runs laughing between blooming flowers. Alice's hand is warm in Mark's. The plastic sheet is gone. Only the soft music of the moment remains. Mark breathes deeply, letting the dream wash over him. He knows the journey is not over, that some part of Alice remains, a fragile, shimmering presence beyond the veil. And in the quiet between breaths, in the hush of the night, he finds peace, not in answers, not in certainty, but in the gentle hope that love, like light through a plastic sheet, can pass through the thinnest barriers and hold us, even when the world feels still. The story is a slow river of quiet love and fragile hope, a soft meditation on holding on and letting go. It doesn't rush, it doesn't shout. It simply is, a whispered lullaby to hearts that know both loss and longing. Let's embark on a calm, immersive, and soothing retelling of A Child's Problem by Reggie Oliver. The story begins in a small English village, nestled among softly rolling hills and shaded lanes. It's the kind of place where the pace of life is gentle, where afternoons melt slowly into evenings, and the whisper of leaves is a constant companion. Here lives a young boy named Christopher. Christopher is a quiet child with wide, curious eyes. He sees the world with an innocence that feels almost fragile, like a delicate glass sculpture shaped by wonder and simplicity. He's neither rushed nor hurried. His days unfold like soft petals opening slowly to the sun. But Christopher carries with him a problem, a small knot of unease that sits quietly inside his heart. This problem isn't loud or sharp. It doesn't demand attention with thunder or bright lights. Instead, it settles like a shadow just beyond the corner of his vision, a gentle whisper that he can almost ignore, but not quite. Christopher's parents notice. They watch him sometimes, with a quiet concern, their voices low and gentle when they speak about him. They don't want to burden him or make his days heavier. They only wish to understand, to soothe. Christopher's world is filled with small pleasures, a stream that glitters in the sunlight, an old oak tree with branches that seem to cradle the sky, and the soft laughter of friends in the distance. Yet within this calm, the problem hums softly. One afternoon, Christopher is playing near the edge of the woods that border the village. The light filters through the leaves in warm, dappled patterns, and the air smells sweet with earth and flowers. He finds a small, worn toy, a wooden soldier, faded and chipped. It seems out of place here, as if it has traveled a long way to arrive in his hands. The toy feels heavy with stories, and Christopher holds it carefully, as if it might unravel secrets if he listens closely enough. That night, Christopher dreams. In his dreams, the toy soldier comes to life. He stands tall and still beneath a moonlit sky, his wooden face carved with quiet resolve. The soldier beckons Christopher to follow. Together, they walk through a soft mist, moving between shadows and light. The dream feels endless and tender, like a slow dance in the dark. As the dream unfolds, Christopher sees memories, faint, flickering images of a child he doesn't quite recognize. A child who looks like him but lives somewhere beyond the edges of the village, beyond the borders of time. This other child has a problem too, something whispered and untold. Christopher wakes with a gentle start, the dream lingering like a soft echo in his mind. He wonders if the toy soldier holds more than just wood and paint, that it might carry the sorrow and hope of a forgotten child. Days pass, and Christopher's quiet problem remains. But something shifts. He begins to notice little things. How the wind carries voices no one else hears. How shadows lengthen and bend in ways that don't quite match the light. He feels drawn to the toy soldier, returning it again and again to his bedside, as if it might protect him from the shadows. His parents try to comfort him, speaking softly about love and courage, about the strength found in gentle hearts. Christopher listens, but he knows the problem is not something to be fixed with words alone. It is a feeling, a presence, a small ache in the silence. One afternoon, as the sun sinks low and paints the sky in hues of pink and gold, Christopher returns to the edge of the woods. He places the toy soldier at the foot of the old oak tree, whispering a wish he doesn't fully understand. The wind picks up, rustling leaves and carrying his words away, soft and fading. In that quiet moment, the shadows seem to breathe around him, neither threatening nor frightening, but calm and watchful. Christopher feels a gentle warmth, a promise perhaps, or a quiet goodbye. The problem, once a shadow at the edge of his world, begins to soften, like mist touched by morning light. He knows it may never fully disappear, but it no longer weighs so heavily on his heart. It becomes part of the quiet tapestry of his life, woven gently alongside laughter and dreams. Christopher walks home slowly, the toy soldier left behind, the woods whispering softly in farewell. The village glows in the fading light, a place of peace, memory, and the soft magic found in small, everyday moments. This story, like a whispered secret, reminds us that some problems live quietly within us, not to be solved, but gently understood and carried with grace. It is a lullaby for the heart, a calm reflection on the delicate balance between childhood innocence and the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface. Let's gently explore Sad Dark Thing by Michael Marshall Smith. Our story begins in a quiet, unassuming town, where the streets are lined with old trees whose branches cradle the sky like gentle arms. The air carries a stillness that feels both comforting and heavy, a kind of soft melancholy that settles deep into the bones of the place. In this town lives a man named Graham. Graham is a solitary figure, someone who moves through his days quietly, almost invisibly. His life is marked by routine, morning coffee in a small cafe, slow walks along familiar paths, Evenings spent alone in a modest apartment filled with books and faint traces of forgotten memories. Graham's world is quiet, but within it lives a sadness that clings like a shadow at dusk. It is not loud or angry, but soft and persistent, a gentle ache that whispers of loss and longing. One evening, as twilight bleeds softly into night, Graham finds himself walking a little slower than usual, his footsteps echoing softly on the pavement. He carries a small, worn photograph in his pocket, an image of a woman whose face holds both warmth and sorrow. This woman, whose name is Elaine, once filled Graham's world with light. Their memories are intertwined like threads of silver and shadow, fragile and beautiful. But time, like a slow river, has carried her away, leaving Graham alone with the quiet ache of her absence. That night, Graham sits in his armchair by the window, gazing out at the city lights flickering like distant stars. The room is filled with a soft glow, shadows dancing gently on the walls. He thinks about the past, the moments they shared, the promises whispered beneath the hush of evening. His mind drifts, carried on the gentle waves of memory. He remembers Elaine's laughter, bright and clear like a bell ringing in the dawn. He recalls the softness of her touch, the way she could make even the darkest days feel a little lighter. But alongside these memories, there is a shadow, a sad, dark thing that lingers just beyond the edges of his thoughts. This sadness is not simply grief. It is a quiet loneliness, a yearning for connection that feels both tender and unyielding. Graham wonders if anyone else carries such a sadness, a hidden weight beneath the smiles and greetings of everyday life. As the night deepens, he finds himself drawn to the small park near his apartment, a place where the trees sway gently in the breeze and the benches hold the quiet stories of countless evenings. He sits there, wrapped in a soft coat against the chill, listening to the subtle sounds of the world settling into sleep. In this stillness, Graham feels the sadness more keenly, but also a gentle companionship, a shared understanding with the quiet night. He lets himself be present with the sadness, accepting it as a part of his being, not something to fight or fear. Days turn into weeks, and Graham's life continues in its quiet rhythm. He visits the cafe, walks the streets, carries the weight of memory like a soft cloak. But within the sadness, there is a subtle shift, a slow, tender healing that comes not from forgetting, but from embracing the full spectrum. A feeling one afternoon, as rain falls softly outside his window, Graham receives a letter. It is from an old friend, someone who once shared parts of his journey and understands the quiet spaces within him. The letter speaks gently of hope, of the ways we can carry sadness and still find moments of light. It reminds Graham that even the sad, dark things in life can have their place in the tapestry of our experience. He reads the words slowly, savoring their softness, and feels a gentle warmth spreading through his chest. The sadness remains, but it no longer feels so isolating. It becomes a thread that connects him to others, a shared human truth woven through the quiet fabric of existence. As the story draws to a close, Graham returns to the park one last time in this gentle telling. He sits beneath the trees, the leaves whispering softly overhead. The sky is a deep velvety blue, speckled with stars that twinkle like distant dreams. He breathes deeply, letting the sadness and the light mingle within him, a quiet harmony that soothes the heart. And as the night wraps around him like a soft blanket, Graham closes his eyes and lets the peaceful darkness carry him gently into sleep. This story, tender and reflective, invites us to sit with our own quiet sorrows and find comfort in their gentle presence. It is a lullaby for the soul, a soft reminder that even in sadness, there is a subtle beauty waiting to be embraced. Let's slowly and softly journey through Near Zennor by Elizabeth Hand. Our story begins in the gentle, mist-wrapped landscape of Cornwall, a place where ancient stones rest beneath the heather, and the sea whispers secrets to the cliffs. The village of Zennor sits quietly on the edge of this wild beauty, small, timeless, and cradled by nature's soft embrace. Here, in this tranquil yet mysterious setting, lives a woman named Lillian. Lillian is someone who carries the weight of the past quietly within her, a soft melancholy that colors her days with a gentle blue haze. She has come to this coastal village seeking peace, perhaps healing, from a life that felt hurried and fragmented before. Her arrival is like a soft breath, a stillness settling over the place, as if the land itself is welcoming her home. Lillian rents a small cottage nestled near the cliffs, where the salt air drifts through open windows and the distant crash of waves becomes a soothing lullaby. She spends her days walking along the rocky shore, tracing the edge where land and sea meet in a delicate dance. The village itself is slow-moving and quiet, filled with old houses whose windows hold stories, and gardens bursting with wildflowers and herbs. The people of Zennor are warm but reserved, their lives entwined with the rhythm of the tides and the changing seasons. Lillian is drawn to the landscape, the rugged cliffs, the shifting sands, and the ancient stone circles hidden among the gorse bushes. There is something about the place that feels both timeless and gently alive, as if the past is never quite separate from the present. One evening, as the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Lillian discovers a small, weathered journal tucked away in the attic of her cottage. The pages are fragile, yellowed with age, and filled with delicate handwriting that speaks of longing, loss, and memories preserved like treasured shells. As she reads, Lillian is drawn into the life of a woman who lived here long ago, someone who, like her, sought solace and connection near the sea. The journal's entries speak of quiet days spent wandering the cliffs, of dreams woven with the salt breeze, and of an enduring love touched by sorrow. Lillian feels a kinship with this distant woman, a thread that connects them across time. The nights in Zennor hold their own gentle magic. Under the soft glow of the moon, the village seems to breathe in a different rhythm. The ocean's murmur becomes a song, and the stars shimmer like lanterns guiding lost souls home. Lillian often finds herself sitting by the window, the journal open on her lap, feeling the delicate pull of memories, both hers and those captured in the faded ink. One day, while walking near an ancient stone circle, Lillian encounters a man named Thomas. He is a local artist, someone who sees the world through colors and shapes, capturing the shifting light and shadow in his paintings. Thomas is quiet, thoughtful, with eyes that seem to hold the depths of the sea itself. Their conversations are slow and easy, like the tide coming in gently to the shore. Together, they share moments of stillness, watching gulls glide over the waves, feeling the chill of the breeze, and listening to the soft hum of the earth beneath their feet. Through Thomas, Lillian begins to feel the fragile threads of connection weaving into her days. She learns of the village's stories, tales of ancient spirits, whispered legends, and the enduring mystery of the land. The quiet power of Zennor seeps into her heart, mingling with her own memories and hopes. As autumn deepens, the days grow shorter, and the air carries a crispness that hints at winter's approach. Lillian and Thomas spend more time together, their friendship blossoming with a gentle warmth. There is no rush, no need for words to fill every silence, just the simple presence of two souls finding comfort in one another. One evening, beneath a sky brushed with stars, Lillian shares the journal's stories with Thomas. They read the faded words aloud, letting the voices of the past mingle with their own, creating a tapestry of time and feeling. The tales speak of love found and lost, of pain softened by the passage of years, and of the quiet strength found in holding memories close without letting them weigh too heavily on the heart. In the soft silence that follows, Lillian feels a deep peace, a sense of belonging that she hadn't realized she was seeking. The sadness that once lingered like a distant storm begins to dissolve, replaced by the gentle light of hope and connection. The sea continues its endless song. The cliffs stand steadfast and calm, and the village of Zennor wraps around Lillian like a protective embrace. In this place near the edge of the world, she discovers that healing often comes in quiet moments, through nature's beauty, through stories shared, and through the simple act of being seen and understood. As the story gently closes, Lillian looks out toward the horizon, where sky and sea blend into a soft, endless blue. She breathes deeply, feeling the weight of the past lighten and the promise of new beginnings stir softly within her. And as the night settles, wrapped in the timeless hush of the Cornish coast, Lillian lets herself drift into peaceful sleep, carried gently on the waves of memory, hope, and quiet love. This tale, tender and reflective, is a soft invitation to find peace in stillness, and connection to embrace the past with gentle acceptance, and to carry hope quietly in the heart. It is a lullaby whispered by the sea, a soothing story to cradle the soul as it slips softly into dreams.